All right, today we're jumping into one of the most game-changing periods in all of human history, the Renaissance. And we're going to tackle a central mystery, really, a paradox. How a massive leap into the future was actually powered by a deep, almost obsessive look into the past.
I mean, think about that for a second. It's a wild idea, right? We always think progress means ditching the old, inventing the new. But the Renaissance just flips that whole idea on its head. To really get how, let's start with the name itself.
The word Renaissance is just French for rebirth, and it perfectly describes that incredible explosion of art, science, and culture that started in Europe around the 14th century, the one that basically pulled the world out of the Middle Ages and set the stage for, well, everything that came next.
But okay, a rebirth of what exactly? What was coming back to life? It was this rediscovery of the ideas, the art, the philosophy, the sheer brilliance of the classical world. We're talking about the incredible achievements of ancient Greece and Rome that had, for the most part, been lost or just forgotten about for centuries. Now, this wasn't about just, dusting off some old statues in a museum. No. This was something so much more active, so much more alive. It was about starting a genuine conversation with the greatest minds of antiquity. To them, all that ancient knowledge wasn't some dead relic. It was a living, breathing source of wisdom and inspiration. They truly believed that by studying, by copying, and then by trying to surpass the works of the past, they could bring art and culture back to its absolute peak. Let's take a look at how this conversation with the past created some breathtaking, tangible results. I mean, this whole movement hits its peak with absolute titans. You've got Leonardo da Vinci, the ultimate Renaissance man, right? A guy whose curiosity was just endless. Then there's Michelangelo, whose sculptures, like his famous David, have this perfect classical body, but also this incredibly intense human emotion. And of course, Raphael, whose masterpiece, The School of Athens, is literally a painting of a conversation between all the great ancient philosophers. Now, of course, all this genius didn't just happen in a vacuum. It needed cash. And it was funded by incredibly wealthy and powerful patrons, most famously the Medici family in Florence. They poured their fortune into commissioning these incredible works, basically bankrolling the entire engine of the Renaissance. And here, check this out, this is a perfect direct example of that conversation with the past in action. So this ancient Roman statue, the Apollo Belvedere, gets dug up, everyone just freaks out, it's hailed as the peak of perfection. Just a few years later, the artist Albrecht Dürer creates his famous print of Adam and Eve, and look at that. Adam's pose is a direct, almost perfect copy of the Apollo. He was learning from the masters to create his own masterpiece. But this way of thinking, it wasn't just for the painters and sculptors. Oh no, it was for the engineers and architects too. They'd look at the ruins of ancient Rome, and they didn't just see rubble. They saw solutions to some of their biggest problems. Okay, try to picture this. For over 100 years, the main cathedral in Florence, the very heart of the city, had a giant 45-meter-wide hole in its roof. An entire century went by and nobody, not one person, could figure out how to build a dome big enough and strong enough to cover it. People thought it was literally an impossible problem. Until Filippo Brunelleschi came along. And what was his big idea? He went to Rome and he studied the ancient Pantheon, that marvel of Roman engineering. By figuring out how the Romans did it, he was able to invent brand new techniques and build his iconic dome, the perfect symbol of looking to the past to create the future. So, this creative explosion, it didn't just stay in Italy. It rippled outwards, becoming this crucial bridge between the medieval and the modern world, all thanks to some truly game-changing innovations. And probably the single most important innovation of them all was the printing press. You gotta remember, before this, books were unbelievably rare and expensive. Every single one had to be copied by hand. The printing press changed everything. All of a sudden, ideas, including all those rediscovered classical texts, could be shared faster and farther than anyone ever dreamed possible. It basically democratized knowledge and just poured fuel on the fire of change. And you can draw a straight line from this moment forward. The printing press paved the way directly for the scientific revolution, which then led to the Enlightenment, and that, in turn, led to the Industrial Revolution. Seriously, the Renaissance was the spark that lit the fuse of the entire modern world. So why are we talking about a period from 600 years ago? Why does it still matter? because the mindset, this spirit that drove the Renaissance, actually gives us a pretty powerful blueprint for how we can tackle our own challenges today.
The lessons are pretty clear and they're totally timeless. Look to the past for inspiration, but use that knowledge to innovate like crazy. Believe in our own potential to solve huge problems, just like Brunelleschi did with his impossible dome. And maybe most importantly, understand our own place in the long story of history and think about the legacy that we're creating for the future.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. The great minds of the Renaissance looked back over 1,000 years to the glories of ancient Rome to find the tools they needed to build their future. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we're here facing the challenges of our time, where should we be looking for our inspiration? What lost wisdom is out there that could help us build a better world?